Oh gosh, my journey with dogs started a long time ago. Um, Probably, well, like, oddly enough, I grew up in a house with cats. My mom is kind of stereotypical crazy cat lady. She's very loving, loves all animals. That's where I get my love for all animals from. But we did rescue since I was very, very young. And so we've had everything from cats to rabbits and ferrets and chinchillas and prairie dogs and sugar gliders and everything. So I didn't actually get my first dog until I was 11, um, and it was a white German Shepherd. Um, but unfortunately, at the time, I didn't know anything about training. It was supposed to be a family dog, but unfortunately, it didn't work out. We had her for about 6 months old, and she proved to be a little bit too much for our household. My mom knew more about cats. I was 11. I didn't know about dogs very much and training or anything like that. So we did have to find a home for her on a farm. Thankfully, the people there were really, really awesome, and they allowed us to continue visiting for pretty much a dog's entire life. So we would visit her on holidays and her birthday and stuff like that. And there were always other dogs on the farm. A couple of Roddy mixes that I really liked, took a liking to. But yeah, we visited her for about 12 years until she passed of cancer. But that kind of started, my whole thing with dogs. And when I was about 15, I started volunteering for the local non-kill shelter, and that's where I spent about 3 years volunteering, and uh, that's where I kind of learned about just being with dogs and dog body language, and just from hands-in experience, just going in every day and spending time with them. And I kind of developed a natural ability to handle dogs of all shapes and sizes. I particularly liked the big dogs, the more, I guess, stereotypically aggressive breeds, the pit bulls or bully mixes that would come in, the Rottweilers, the German Shepherds, that kind of stuff. I was perfectly comfortable just going in there with the big dogs and handling them. And that's I adopted my first dogs from the shelter. One was a husky beagle mix, husky lab beagle mix, and the other was a German Shepherd Dutch Shepherd mix. Who, hands down to this day, I will say was the best dog I ever had in my life. Um, didn't really, it's were really kind of what I when I started getting into the training and stuff like that. Also, like I said, because my mom ran rescue, we had a lot of cats. We had about maybe 6 or 7 dogs at one point, all in the house. Like, just lots of animals. Always had lots of animals. And it was around 2006, I think it was, where they started the pit bull ban in Ontario. And I was living in Toronto, Ontario at the time. And that's when we'd start getting the dogs dumped on us. It used to be the cats dumped on us, now it's the dogs getting dumped on us. So we got bully mixes. I ended up taking in a lot of private fosters and rescues. I spent probably about 15 years just doing rescue and foster out of pocket, just myself. But it was a little bully mix, little like 37 pound, barely 40 pound Staffordshire Bull Terrier mix that got me into training, because she was a very fearful dog. She was abused by her previous family, and she was very afraid of people. She's the one that got me into dog training and working specifically with aggressive and fear reactive cases. And I love that dog. She's really what started it all for me. And from there, I ended up moving out to BC in 2008, I think it was. Yeah, 2008, I moved out to BC. I've had a bunch of dogs throughout my life. So I had her at one point. when I didn't have her anymore, when I didn't have my shepherd anymore, because they'd passed of old age. Um, I ended up once again in BC with an Alaskan Husky. I've had a lot of Huskies, Husky mixes, Shepherds, Bully mixes, um, and I really, really always wanted a Rottweiler. And it was the one dog that, for whatever reason, whenever I asked my mom, "Can I get a Rottweiler? Can I get a Rottweiler?" We had like all these other ones, and for whatever reason, it was like, "No, we have too many. We can't have, a Rottweiler." So I didn't get my first Rottweiler until I moved out to BC in 2009. And uh, yeah, like honestly, I don't know what it was about the breed. Like I started with, maybe Huskies are my favorite breed, maybe Shepherds are my favorite breed, maybe the Pit Bulls and the Bullies are my favorite breed. It was the Rotties that really kind of stole my heart. Um, and my first boy, Django, absolute dream of a dog. Um, so loyal. Like I barely had to train this dog anything. Um, just great in all situations with other dogs, with people. He was great off leash. He was a perfect amount of protective and friendly. Um, just absolutely wonderful. I can't say any more good things about this dog. And yeah, throughout the time that I had him, I was still doing the training. He was in a lot of cases like my demo dog that I would use for nervous cases. He was a stable dog that I would have to help socialize with the dogs that I needed to help socialize with. But yeah, no, that's pretty much how my journey with dogs started from that very young age. My mom just being, the nurturing one, and the one that really showed me empathy for animals, which I really, really deeply appreciate. And yeah, so we went from the Rotties to, I guess, let's see, how did it start with the minis? I think what it was is just I had a couple generations of Rotties. So my girl that I have right now, Malibu, she just turned 7, and she's the third generation of my dogs. I've had her dad, Jaeger, who was the start of who was the original start of my mini line. I started with it about 13 years ago, I think, about that amount of time. So what had happened was I had Django. I had found a female that I really liked. We did one litter, um, and I kept a son back. And I had found out. I don't even remember how I found out about the minis, but I just thought it was the most amazing thing because as much as I love the big dogs, and this is where it kind of goes a little off to one side. Um, I love the big guys. They've always been my love, but I think at some point there was kind of a preference for a slightly smaller, well, slightly half the size dog, about like the 40 to 50 pound dog. And where that had come from was my very first girl, my Staffy mix, the one that got me into dog training. I loved her size. I loved the just about 40 pounds, just under 40 pounds size. I found that she was a lot easier to travel with. Um, Back out in Toronto, I used a lot of public transportation, so I didn't drive. I still don't drive, but it was just so easy to get around Toronto with public transit, and we're allowed to bring dogs on the public transit as long as it's not rush hour. So I used to bring Xena everywhere with me, and she used to just kind of tuck under the seat out of the way. Um, she was less intimidating. But like still like a dog, like enough of a dog presence that I could walk, in a, you know, not so great neighborhood or whatever because we lived in Scarborough, so it wasn't always the best neighborhoods. So I could still walk around in those neighborhoods and feel like I had a dog that would protect me to some degree. Um, and just I don't know, something about that size just I really really loved. But um, being that I worked also within rescue, I also helped volunteer for some of the local rescue groups as a trainer. I'd volunteer my time as a trainer to do assessments for a lot of these dogs coming into rescue. And I ended up fostering, again, another breed I had never heard of, Mammoth Bulldog. Two of them, brother and sister pair, that were confiscated from some backyard breeder or something in the area. They had not been treated well, and they had confiscated some dogs. So Hera, I ended up keeping her. We found a home for her brother, Zeus, and Hera. I don't know. I just fell in love with this dog, and so I ended up doing research on the mammoth bulldogs, which is kind of like, for people that don't know what it is kind of like a long-haired Old English bulldog. So she was black and tan, and everywhere I went with her, she was, again, just under the 50-pound mark. And everywhere I went with her, people would comment that she looks like a small furry Rottweiler just because she was black and tan. But she did, have a bit of the big head and the thicker body, but like she still had a very bulldog face, right? But anyone's going to be like, oh, it's black and tan, it must be part Rottweiler, despite the fact that there are a lot of different breeds out there that are black and tan. But anyway, I thought it was cute though. Like, and honestly, Hera was in a lot of ways some inspiration to what I ultimately am after with my own dogs in my program. But when I heard about the minis initially, I was like, oh my goodness, it's just such a good idea. Like, it really struck me because, like I say, as much as I love the Rotties, I love the big dogs. I realize though, for a lot of people, having these big dogs, it's difficult for a lot of people. People don't have the space, people don't have the time to put in the training a lot of the time. As a trainer, I got a lot of, cases where this was the case. They have the job and they have the kids and they don't have the time to put in the training, and you're trying to manage this big dog in a house, and you live in a house that doesn't have a backyard, and you can't go to the dog park. Not that I've always told my clients to avoid dog parks anyway, but like, a lot of us are not in like living circumstances where having these big dogs is very practical, is what I would say. And so the littles, when I saw them, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is such a good idea. Because you have these dogs. That the other thing too is that with the bully bans, and with these other, breed restrictions, you're coming across like places where, like, housing, where there's not just breed restrictions, but size restrictions, and a lot of housing and stratas and in apartments, stuff like that, where a lot of cases they'll only allow a dog that's maybe only 20 to 40 pounds or 50 pounds or less. There's also the cost of food. Goodness knows that trying to feed a dog that's 100 plus pounds can get pretty pricey. And when I had just one Rottweiler and like the husky, and I had a Chihuahua at 1.2, feeding 3 dogs wasn't that bad. And I used to feed raw. Like, I fed my dogs raw food for probably 12 years before I got to the point where I had more dogs and I had to switch back to kibble, because feeding that many dogs raw just gets a little bit too pricey. But like, again, feeding a very large dog, it gets pricey, versus feeding a dog that's only 40 pounds is going to be, a lot easier on the finances. That and overall lifespan for smaller dogs tends to be, a little bit longer. I know, like, my 50-pound husky mixes live to like 17, 18 years old, versus my big Rotties, they only made it to like 8, 9 years old. I think the oldest one from one of my litters passed last year at 12, which was great. But I know the lifespan Rottie is usually between 9 and 13 years old. So having a smaller dog also the idea is that they'll live a little longer. Um, Ultimately, too, we're going for better joint health as well, because a lot of larger dogs have problems with hip dysplasia. So all of the dogs in my breeding program, I have gotten their OFA, hip, elbows, patellas done for the last four generations, something like that, 4 or 5 generations of dogs in my program. So we're going for also better hip and joint health. Um, so just all these advantages to having a dog that's a little bit smaller, plus the intimidation factor. There are a lot of people that are just very much afraid of big dogs. So these guys they're smaller, so they're a little less intimidating, a little more approachable. But like I said, they still make you feel they're a smaller dog, but they're still a big dog. So they still make you feel like you're protected. Um, and yeah, just I saw so many advantages to it. I got really excited about it. And initially, it wasn't even about, oh, I want to breed these dogs. I just wanted to own one. Like, I just really, really wanted to own one. And the breeder that I had found at the time, we were talking about it and we were all set. And I was like ready to get this puppy. And then I'm not sure what happened, but we just kind of lost contact. And so I was like, okay, well, maybe I can create my own if I can't find, a breeder to get one from. And at the time, I had Jaeger, who was the son of my first Rottweiler, Django, and I had bred him and gotten, sorry, no, I hadn't bred him yet. I had acquired a female for my program, and initially my thought was to breed small purebred Rottweilers. It was just to breed like a small offspring to small offspring and try to get the size down over generations that way. But that didn't end up being quite a practical, way to do it. Also would take like a long time, and the more research I did into it as well, um, there if you Google search miniature Rottweilers, like they tell you how there are different ways that you can basically achieve the goal, and one is breeding small to small, but that can come with a number of health concerns from breeding runt to runt. Um, Another was crossbreeding, which is the most practical, and I basically what I did end up doing was acquiring a miniature pinscher mix male, for my first attempt with the program. And this was, like I say, about 13 years ago. Fortunately, that's the start of that program didn't end up working out, and I had to scrap the whole thing and start over again. So there was a good couple years of wasted time there, unfortunately. But I had been searching online again, and I found a Carlin Pinscher breeder that was in Langley. And I got really excited because in my research of the minis, basically I found out like there are the miniatures that have actual Rottweiler blood in them, and they're mixed to smaller breeds, and then there are the miniature frauds, because they look like they're bred to basically look like Rottweiler, but they don't have any Rottweiler blood in them whatsoever, and that would be the Carlin Pinschers, which is or Muggin is what they're known as well when you search like the designer breeds like the Puggles and the Chihuahuas and all that. So they're known as Muggin, or they're known as Carlin Pinschers, and they're the pug miniature pinscher mixes. And basically with these two dogs, they had with this mix of dogs, they were going for a little black and tan miniature Rottweiler look, but they also have a miniature boxer look. So they can come in the black and tan, and they can come in the fawn with like the black mask. And so you have the split of the two, and they come in like 15 to 20 pounds, usually 15 to 25 pounds at max. And I just thought, yeah, like these little dogs are super, super cute. And I happened to find a Carlin Pinscher breeder in the area, not very far from me. And so I got in touch with her and I was like, look, I have this idea to make a mini line, but that actually has Rottweiler blood in it. And I'm looking for a stud dog, basically, because I had, at this point, I had bred Jaeger and I kept a female back, which is the female that I have right now, Malibu, my girl. So I was looking for a mini stud male. And at the time, she wasn't giving out breeding rights to her dogs, but she was, she was very, excited for my program. And she had given me the name of a breeder in Alberta who had bred Roddy bears, which are bred similarly to Carlin Pinschers, but they have a few more breeds added. So they have Beagle and also Japanese Chin, as well as the Pug and Miniature Pinscher. So they're a little bit bigger. They're in like the 20 to 30 pound range, and they come in only tan point, but they come in black and tan or chocolate and tan, and they can also come in a long coat variety. So, and they also have bred away from the more puggish face, because with a lot of the Carlin Pinschers, you get the very, very short coat, like the pug and the min pin, but you get the very, very pug-like face and muzzle. And with the Roddy bears, they actually were able to get the double coat that a Rottweiler should have, and brought the muzzle out more. So you don't have quite the squished face look of the pug. And so I approached this breeder, and she does Frenchies now. She breeds Frenchies now, and you think you follow her program too. So Sandy Cristiano, she's Boss Kennels French Bulldogs, but she bred the Roddy bears for about 5 years, and she put a lot of work into her program, the Canadian Roddy bears, and her dogs were absolutely amazing. Really, really beautiful. She got some very, very consistent looks from her dogs. Put in a bunch of health testing. Like, she was very, very, adamant about the proper health testing and all that behind the bears. And I approached her about my idea for the mini rot program also. And she was down for it, and we talked, and I ended up acquiring a male from her, who is turning 8 this November, coming up. So I've had Jack for 8 years, very soon here. And I got a couple other dogs from her down the line that I've also incorporated into my program. But Jack was like the boy that I started with. And absolutely wonderful dog, super stable, super bomb-proof, with like any adult or kid or other dogs, like everything. He's just very high energy, because of his mix, but like an absolute dream temperament wise. But yeah, so I acquired Jack, and how I started with my program basically was, and I acquired Joker, who was a Carlin Pinscher outcross. So Joker was Roddy Bear bred to one of the Carlin Pinschers from the original lady, Carly's Carlins. I got one of her dog Ace's, Ace and Mason, one of her dog Ace's sons, Joker. And so I had the two boys. And so when I created my minis initially, I had started with my Roddy line. And I had, see who else. I acquired another Carlin Pinscher from another breeder in California. And I had bred him to Malibu. So I had Jules was the one that I got from California. So I bred him to Malibu via AI, and I kept a daughter off of that one. And I had also, at the time, a little bit beforehand, acquired another Roddy from imported, like an imported line, Serbian line Roddy, because I knew that with the miniature pinscher in these dogs, I was going to lose a lot of the bone structure. So I spent about almost $4,000 at the time, and this was 7 years ago, to get my import girl because I wanted that thicker bone structure. So I ended up breeding Joker to her. And we had only 2 puppies, a male and a female. We kept both of them for the program. And so I started with those two unrelated lines, keeping the best. We only had females in Malibu's litter, and we had male and a female in the other litter. So I ended up needing at least another male. So I ended up stumbling across Chris's website, and Chris Stoltzfus is out of Pennsylvania, and he's one of the original founders of the breed, and he's been working on them for about since 2007 is when he started. So he started his lines initially with, instead of the typical pug miniature pinscher, he started with Pekingese and miniature pinscher initially. And then he acquired the Carlin pinschers, also Pug and Min Pin, for his program. And he then introduced Rottweiler blood into his program. And he's been going very strong with his program for a number of years. He's been putting out very consistent looking dogs at this point. And at the time, he was not giving out breeding rights. But I took a chance. I called him and I told him, I was like, look, I'm another mini breeder in Canada, and I've started my own 2 lines, unrelated lines of these dogs, and I need unrelated blood to add to my program. Would you be interested in this? Like, I've just been really wowed by these guys, and I really, really want to contribute to the development. I was just so excited about it. Excuse me. And he was like, you know what? I am totally down for that. He said too, he's been needing some new blood for his lines, also more diverse, genes to add, because we don't want to run into, the problem is that there are so few breeders of the minis out there. We don't want to run into the problems with inbreeding our dogs, obviously for health issues reasons. And so we did a trade, and he shipped me one of the males in his program that I really loved, that I followed for a couple of years. And he was retiring him from his program. He was a 4.5-year-old male. So he sent him out to me, and I shipped him out a puppy, one of my F1 puppies, out of Malibu's sister, bred to one of the Roddy Bears that I had gotten from Sandy. And he's had Jackson for almost 4 years now. And he's actually just, I've learned recently, been introduced to another breeder's program too, another mini breeder's program that just moved to New York, actually, just a couple weeks ago. So Jackson's going to be doing good things, hopefully, for another breeder out in New York now. And like I say, it's just a small handful of us. There's not very many currently. There's me, there's Chris, there's the other breeder in New York, Ivan. There is another breeder that I found in Montana, and she breeds hers, Kayla, and she breeds hers, instead of with the miniature pinscher pug, she breeds hers to miniature lab, which, don't quote me on this, but if I'm not mistaken, is, I think it's British White Lab and Pug Beagle. So her dogs are they end up a little on the larger scale as far as mini goes, because the ideal weight and size that we're looking for is, I know Chris's goal is like the 35-pound mark is what he's trying for. I'm going for the 35 to 45 for my females, and max at 50 for my males. And hers get to a little bit bigger, up to between 45 to maybe 70 pounds. because of the lab in them, but the temperament is a lot calmer, because I found that the mix with the miniature pinscher tends to get the dogs, especially the first generation, quite high energy. And I mean, they're supposed to be, an alert and active breed in some cases. But yeah, definitely the first couple generations with a miniature pinscher amps up that energy. I found that they don't start calming down, at least not in my lines, until about the third generation dogs that I'm producing now. So we're trying to bring that energy level back down a little bit. Very smart dogs, so highly trainable. Um, Still retain the guarding instinct because they are Rottweiler mixes. All the dogs in my program, even the F1 F2s, are anywhere between 50 and 60% Rottie still. They just look smaller, like literally half the size. Currently, the dogs in my program are anywhere between 30 and 60 pounds. My smallest is 30 pounds, and my biggest male is 60 pounds. But the majority of them are in the 35-pound area, which is exactly what Chris's initial goal for the size is. So, but yeah, so that's how it started. That's where we've ended up now. Basically, the other thing I was going to say is Chris is Amish, so a lot of the popularity of the breed has been mostly in the States and word of mouth for the last decade, basically. Um, it's only been this past 4 years that I started really kind of trying to push and promote the breed through social media, because he doesn't have access to that. And he has a photographer come in and take the pictures and create the website and all that, where he advertises the puppies. Now I have created a Facebook group, which is the Mini Rots and Friends Facebook group, uh, because I wanted a place that the mini owners could come to just, I don't know, like be with other mini owners and have that sense of community and stay in touch with the breeders, like myself, or like Kayla, or one of the other breeders of the Roddy Bears, one of really the only ethical breeders left of the Roddy Bears, because Sandy isn't breeding them anymore. She's breeding the Frenchies now. Is Layla, who's also out of Pennsylvania, and she's under Trinity House Kennels. So she is an ethical breeder of the Roddy Bears. And next year, probably sometime next year, she's going to be doing her first breeding, where she's introducing Rottweiler blood into her dogs to create. I call them the true minis because they actually have the Roddy blood in them, not the little imposter ones, but they're still sweet. They're still cute little guys. I just call them the little imposters. But um, yeah, no. She's going to be introducing actual Roddy blood into her program coming up next year, something like that. Um, but yeah, other than that, I just wanted a place for everybody to kind of come together and talk about their dogs, training, nutrition, like just post pictures, anything like that. Um, it gets a bit of hate sometimes. Some of the purebred people try to sneak into the group just so they can kind of put the breed down. But I reiterate that it's mini rots and friends. If you're not a friend of the concept of the mini rots, then there's a door type of thing. But no, it's grown quite a bit in the last few years. I think we're at a little over 600 members now, and people just like to post the dogs, and that's really all I want. Is I want a positive experience where people can enjoy these dogs and share, and a lot of it is too when I try to ask people where they found out about the breed, even because they're not very well known. I am seeing more articles when I do random Google search. I am seeing more articles pop up about them. So clearly the information about them is getting out there. Not They're not quite as known in Canada, but like in the States, I'm seeing a little bit more of a rise in popularity with them. Um, but again, like there's not very many of us dedicated to the creation of them. And So that's brought up a lot of some issues here and there. Of course, you've got the purebred fancy that's like, well, give it a different name, or you're ruining the breed, or that kind of thing. And it's like, well, no, we're not trying to ruin the existence of the Rottweiler breed. This is something different. And like, while like I know with like the creation of like other smaller versions of other breeds, like what comes to mind, I think of like Klekai or the Mass, or anything like that. Yes, eventually we hope to change the name. um Mini Rot is not going to stick forever, hopefully, but it's what they look like, so it's what people are going to call them for the time being. And I've been asked, like, well, why don't you change the name? And I'm like, I'm not the creator of the breed. It is not my right, I feel, to try to even come up with a new name. Like, an ideal world, my goal is to eventually get the breeders together to either create a club or create a standard in the future once we start getting um, more consistent with our dogs, because right now they're depending on the breeder's program, they're kind of all over the place in terms of what the breeder wants, in terms of what dogs are using to mix with. Because like I said, while I used Rottweiler and Pug and Miniature Pinscher, and the Rottie Bears have that little bit of Beagle in them, you've got other breeders like Kayla who use the Miniature Lab, and you've got like breeders like Chris that used Pekingese, and Min Pin, and I believe one of his lines has a little bit of ACD also. Um, so yeah, like there's not the consistency there with them yet to make them an official breed. We're working on it, but like it's a lot of work. It's there's a lot that still needs to go into it. New breed was not ever created overnight. It takes a long, long time. They're probably not going to get anywhere close to being, their own breed, even, far after I'm dead. Like, who knows, if anybody else is going to continue with that. I hope they do. But it's a process. I tell everybody it's a process. Um, we're trying to do it the right way. We're doing our health testing, we're doing our DNA, we're doing our OFAs. I am trying to prove my dogs in work as well. I know that with Chris's lines, he was going for more pet companion. I'm going for companion also, but I'm also going for workability, because I feel like they should still be able to, if somebody gets one of these dogs and wants to do sport or something with them. I'm a huge fan of working dogs. I've always had dogs that I do some kind of sport or something with, like with my Mammoth. I did agility. With one of my old shepherds, we did nose work. Um, I've done obedience. When Jack was a puppy, before I had my son, I was part of a PSA club very briefly, so I did a little bit of bite work with him. Loved it. Little dude, I love seeing the little guys, especially going for the sleeves and stuff. He's got a lot of big dog energy, right? But like, I love a working dog. Like, we tried sheep herding with my import Rottie. Um, so yeah, I've always been a fan of working dogs. So the other thing I should mention too is the sire of one of my Carlins. He did agility and flyball, and he was a titled agility flyball dog, and he was still competing even at 10 years old. So my dogs definitely do have the drive to work and to be a good little sporty dog for those that want to. I have two of my minis that are on cattle farms. So I'm a huge believer in. I have a co-owner girl who's in a home with a PSA titled Malinois, and they said that they have recently introduced her to barn hunt, which I was just super thrilled about. So I'm like, anybody that wants my dogs, that wants to put them to the test, for some kind of worker sport, I love it. Absolutely love it. Um, and and they should be a good family dog also, and a good pet companion also. But I get a lot of I get drilled a lot too by the purebred. Oh, what's their purpose? And can they work? And I'm like, yes, my dogs can work. They absolutely can still, do the things that their parent breed was, created to do. So maybe not cart pulling because they're smaller, but you could do weight pull with my dogs for sure. Um, but yeah, no, I think that's pretty much it. Like I say, there's still a lot of work we need to do with the breed, obviously. But I think we're off to a good start right now. And I'm just excited to see where it goes, really. I've invested a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of passion into these dogs. And yeah, I'm super, super happy to be working with the breeders that I'm working with. We have a good relationship. Um, yeah, it's just been pretty positive all around so far. I think that's the thing right now is that because it is such a work in progress, and because there's only literally like 5 of us that are seriously putting the work into breeding right now. Because yeah, there's me, there's Chris, there's Ivan, there's Layla, and there's Kayla, really. Um, and there might be others out there that I just don't know of yet. Like part of me starting the Facebook group was that I want to find other breeders of these mini dogs. And even if that's Carlin Pinschers, even if that is other, I don't think there are any other Roddy Bear breeders because it was such a niche thing. Um, and that on its own kind of has a poor start to it. That got a little bit better because somebody took the idea and they tried to improve upon it, which is what Sandy did. But a lot of these breeds too, you have issues with somebody starting it and then it doesn't gain the popularity and it kind of fizzles out. There was that issue within the Carlin Pinscher world for a while too, because same issue was that a lot of them couldn't decide on a standard really because every breeder had their own vision. Like there was a Carlin Pinscher breeder that ended up breeding Merle in her colors, so her dogs ended up being mixed with more than just Pug and Min Pin. And there was the argument that, well, no, if it's a Carlin Pinscher, it's just Pug and Miniature Pinscher, it's nothing else. But having to add another breed to get the Merle, is it really a Carlin Pinscher anymore? That breeder kind of disappeared after a while. Her dogs are quite popular for a little bit, but no one's really heard from her for a while. But then I've seen Carlin Pinschers that are in they get to the reds, they get into the lilac colors, the blue colors, and then it really goes away from the original, which was supposed to be black and tan or fawn, the mini Roddy look or the mini boxer look, right? So you have the breeders there that they want that vision of it, or they want this vision of it. So I mean, it's hard when you have people with the different ideals, right? And so right now, yeah, because there's just very, very few of us, and we all kind of have our own ideas of how we want these dogs to be produced. Like I'm pretty sure, like for I don't know much about Ivan's program because I haven't been in direct contact with him. But I've been in contact with Chris for 4 years. Like we talk on the phone regularly. We email. Like he has email at work. Like he's Amish, so he doesn't have a computer, that kind of things. But he does do like email at work. So we email like once every few months. We have like a good long phone conversation, like maybe once a year, and we talk about the plans and like what new dogs he's bringing into his program, or what we're trying to correct, like temperament wise or size wise or whatever. But for the most part, Chris and I breed to the same standard goals is what we're after. And he's done more collaboration work with Ivan. And from the dogs I've seen out of Ivan's program, they're very consistent to what Chris breeds for. I haven't seen too many of Kayla's dogs yet, just because the group is fairly new, and I'm still getting to know her work as well. And interesting enough, like she's got a good amount of experience with the whole creating of a new breed too, because her mom actually was the original founder of the Comfort Retriever, like some 20 years ago. So, and all the stuff that happened with the creation of that, and where it led to. But So she's no stranger to the concept of, creating a new breed, and the trials that go with it. So, but yeah, the hard thing is getting everybody together though to agree on the vision, agree on a standard, agree on a new name. Even like that's been the biggest thing that's bothered a lot of people. We'll call it something else, and I'm like, I didn't create it, I can't just call it something else. And it looks like a mini Roddy, and that's what the people are going to call it, you know. So for now, that's, we're putting a pin in it, on, as far as the new name goes. That will eventually come, but right now we're concentrating on getting a consistent look over the generations, and then I think we can work on a more specific standard, and then the new name will come. But again, yeah, it's all a process. Um, it takes people working together, you know, and yeah, like that's it really. There's not a whole lot that can be said for that other than that. Actually, Chris has introduced some new dogs to his program. Um, I know he recently got an import Roddy female also for his program. That's actually got a very, very calm, stable temperament. Very, very good things I'm thinking she's going to do for his program. But yeah, no, we are actually, he's actually encouraged um, other mini breeders, because we do want, more diverse um, genes and more diverse blood in our dogs right now. Um, so, but yeah, like, I mean, it's hard too, because like you run into, I try to educate people in the group as far as like training, nutrition, that kind of stuff too. But also I do run into, occasionally you find the people that are like, oh, are you planning on breeding your dog? And it's like, well, first of all, us as breeders, we do send our dogs out on mandatory spay neuter contracts. So I have to kind of gently remind people that, you're not allowed to breed your dog. You signed a contract for spay neuter, and the reason is because like we don't know who you're going to breed your dog to. Like, this is a new dog in development. If you're just randomly breeding, your puppy to whatever, you're unintentionally hurting the work that these breeders have already put a lot of years into to get this specific thing. So, but like we've said, if you are interested in being a legit breeder of the minis, uh, we do encourage it. Like, Chris he didn't give up breeding rights in the beginning to his dogs until I called him and I told him I started my own program, and I asked, right? Because I was serious about it. Um, Too many people, like, just want to get a puppy and just want to stud it out or whatever, right? They don't know what goes into it. Like, it's a lot of work. It's so much work that goes into breeding these dogs. It's a lot of thought that goes into breeding these dogs. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of, blood, sweat, and tears, right? It's a lot of late nights up, bottle feeding puppies, and, all of the hard work and stress and pain but joy that comes with all this stuff. But it's a lot. Like, I work from home full time. This is what I do. I'm a stay-at-home mom, and I take care of the dogs. It's literally all my life is the dogs and kids. So it's 100% what I do, for the passion of these animals. But no, like we absolutely encourage, if somebody's really, really that passionate about the idea of these dogs and they want to contribute, by all means, if we can get help with it, then great. It's been 8 years now since I got my first little guy, my first Jack, for my program. It's been longer though, because like I said, I tried to start it like some 13 years ago. I failed. I tried it twice actually and failed. So I tried it once, I failed. I tried it a second time, I failed, and scrapped it and started all over again. So I've been doing this for, yeah, like 14 years about. But like, I'm finally getting somewhere. I'm finally starting to see, the reward. It's finally, the vision is starting to come together. But it's been a lot of years. It's a lot of dedication. It's not something that you can just kind of try for a few years, and a lot of people give up on it. Actually, I got a comment from Diane Jessup in a group, and I was like, oh my god, because back in the day when they did the pit bull bans out in Ontario, and I started fostering, and I did all of my research into like the bully breeds and all that. So when I heard from her in the group, I was just like, I had a bit of a nerd moment, and she was like, I'm used to people just criticizing, heavily criticizing the program, and she was like, you know what? Good on you for doing this thing and really trying. And she's like, a lot of people give up after 5 years. So she says, if you can make it past the 5 year mark, you're doing good. And here I am, 8 years. Only 4 years, like, since I really started breeding the mini minis. So I'm getting to my third generations now, finally. But like, my journey started officially when I got my first Roddy Bear. So I've made it past 5 years, I'm going to say, because I've had to deal with a lot of the scrutiny. I've had to develop a very thick skin, because there was a lot of hate in the beginning coming at me for this idea. And, you're just a backyard breeder and your dogs are mutts and da-da-da-da. And so, but like, over time, people, I've actually gotten some support from some purebred Roddy folk. Because a lot of the people that like these dogs are people that have had purebred Rotties, and they love them still. And there's no replacing the Rotties. There is no replacing the Rotties. They're a great breed. But a lot of the people that want these little guys are people that have had Rotties, and they just get to an age where the big dogs, they just can't. It's too much for them to handle, and they see the benefit of having something just a little bit smaller, but they're still in love with the Rottie, so they want something that is similar and still looks like it, just a little smaller. And I'm like, and it makes sense to me, because it's like we have so many breeds out there that are not exactly smaller versions of that breed, because they're bred completely different, but like that look like a smaller version of the same breed. And there's been nothing like a small Rottie out there, like, ever, nothing even close. So I'm like, well, why not? It's a good idea to me. It's a logical, thing to me. Why wouldn't people want this, right? And it's not for everyone. It's a very niche thing, but it initially comes from Rottie people, from people that have had Rotties. So, I have some support from some purebred Rottie folk. I have a lot of hate from purebred Rottie folk. I have the people that are in the middle. But it's overall, I think that it's becoming more positive. It's more positive than it was 5 years ago. I'm happy I've made it to, past the 5 year mark. But yeah, no, I will never forget that comment. That really made my day. It meant a lot, especially coming from somebody that experienced in the dog world. So, yeah, like I say, it's my little journey. It's exciting. It's my passion. I'm very happy and excited about it, and to see what the future has in store for it. Yeah, I'm in a couple of Facebook groups, actually, that are for companion mixes, for other breeders to basically post their programs and ideas. So I do follow a handful of other um, new breeds in development. I find it very, very fascinating, just really interesting to see the other works that are out there. Um, and um, and I mean, I'm like, it makes sense to me. Like, why do we need to stop with the breeds? Literally every breed we have out now was a mixed breed at some point in time. And I think that's what I feel like a lot of the purebred fancy forgets that. Um, like, they're just, and no hate on anyone, or not meaning to speak negatively about anybody, but they're just so adamant about, the purebred thing. Oh no, you're ruining these pure breeds. And I'm like, they all started as mixes. Every single one of them. They all had their purpose, whatever. And I mean, there's a lot of flack that companion breeds get, for what's their purpose. Their purpose is to be a companion. That is their purpose. Why is a companion not a good enough purpose, right? A lot of the dogs that we have out there that were bred to do certain jobs don't do those jobs anymore. or like you have your very, very distinct, show or pet line versus your working line dogs. Um, and it's like, a lot of the average pet homes cannot deal with a working line dog. That's why we see so many of these breeds like dumped in shelters or rescues, because someone decides to get a husky or a heeler or something, and these dogs were bred for, generations and generations to work. But you're looking at families that, get these breeds and just can't handle them because they don't have, the time or the energy or the resources or anything to, fulfill that dog's original, need to perform the job that they're bred for. And, like, while I say yes, like with the minis, they're supposed to be a companion breed, um, I do still want them to have, still in my program anyway, some workability. Um, so I think, cater to more of the sporty home than the average pet home. Um, because also, like, honestly, it's kind of inevitable in the mixes that we're using to create these breeds, because like I say, you got the high energy miniature pinscher, you've got a guardian breed like a rottweiler. You're still going to have a breed that needs an outlet for the energy. I'm trying to work on getting the temperaments calmer. Yes, I am. But ultimately I want them to still be able to work if the owner wants that. But I also want them to have an off switch so that they can be compatible in a home. And I mean, probably a great example is one of the females I just retired last year. She was an F1, beautifully tempered dog, super high energy, like really, really crazy high energy. But she got a home on acreage, with two small dogs. Her owners love her. Her name's Jester. She was one of the first. She was actually the firstborn. Her and her brother were the first two puppies born to my program, my first F1s. And Jester is 4. She's retired now. She only did the 2 litters. That's it. And I have my picks back. Wonderful puppies. But yeah, Jester went on to a home, with like 2 small dogs, cats, the kids, everything. Her owners are just like, every day they're like, we love this dog. She is amazing. She's got a lot of energy, but she does, chill out in the house, and like she's super smart, and she's just very aware of everything, and she's so good with everybody, and we love her to pieces. And I'm like, I want more of her, just a little bit calmer. I'm going for at least a little bit calmer so that they have an easier off switch. But no, like I like seeing what comes out of these other programs and these other breeders, and the work that they're putting in. Um, I want to see more. Like, there's no end to the creativity of, we as people. And yeah, I don't know. I don't think that it's fair to just be like, well, we have, the hundreds of dog breeds that already exist out there. We don't need any more. I mean, I think if we were just to say, oh, no more creating in general, like, what kind of thing is that? That's what we as human beings do. We create. I don't think we're ever going to stop creating. So, yeah, no, I think it's a positive thing. Obviously, we need to, we don't want to encourage things like, backyard breeding, puppy mills, that kind of thing. We do want to educate people more. Like, one of the comments I get a lot is, oh, backyard breeder, you're just adding 2 dogs in shelters. And I'm like, one thing I do with my dogs is I microchip them to me. So if any of my puppies out there get lost, and I keep in touch with owners, I created the Facebook group so that there was a place that the owners can go to connect with other owners and post pictures and what, just stay in touch. Like one of my very, very first purebred Rottie litters, I kept in touch with everybody, um, right until the last dog died. Like I said, last year at age 12. I keep in touch with my babies. I take care of them when the owners go on holiday. Like, I very much am the type of breeder that will give a family breeder support for their dog's life. And if my dogs end up in a shelter, I want to be the first one contacted. I want to know so that I can get my dogs out of there. I do not ever want to see my dogs in a shelter system ever. Um, and I try my best, obviously, to place them. Like, I have the questions, a lot of questions. My dogs go under contract. Like, I do everything in my power to make sure that they're going to a home they're going to stay at. Um, And yeah, I don't want to contribute to the overpopulation, but I'm like, the overpopulation of dogs is, and dogs in shelters, it's lack of education. Um, and like, as a dog trainer, like, that was my whole thing, educating people. Um, People need to be educated. Unfortunately, too many people are not educated enough when it comes to owning a dog, just like dog ownership. And then yeah, there are a lot of people that are just doing it for a quick buck, which is harmful. Um, and also, I know a lot of people think it's very, very weird that I went from rescue to breeding. It seems to kind of contradict itself. And I mean, I don't have a good answer for that one. It is a little bit of a contradiction. And I mean, I can't even sit there and like justify to say, well, okay, the dogs that I breed are not like, no hate on doodles. I have nothing against doodles, but like, just the explosion of popularity with doodles, or like any breeder that's like, okay, I'm going to breed doodles to make a buck, or I'm going to breed Frenchies to make a buck. Like, all these breeds that are very common and almost overly bred. Like, back it used to be pit bulls and chihuahuas, that were overly bred, because that's just what was popular at the time, right? And I mean, yeah, I can sit there and say, well, at least I'm not adding to that, mass production of these dogs, right? Um, the dogs that I breed are very, very, very much, excuse me, in a niche, category of their own. So we're not pumping out like litters and litters, every year. Um, I'm still in the phase with my program where the reason I'm producing my litters right now is to keep my foundation dogs back. To pick very specifically my foundation dogs that will be the future of my program. So currently, I've done like maybe a litter a year. I think there was one year where it was two, like one at the beginning and one closer to the end. But it's been four litters in the last, 4 years. I have one more planned that's going to be my last, um, what's it, my last unrelated line, keeping my two foundations back, male and female, back from that litter. And then I will have the solid foundation of dogs that I need to continue, um, picking the best of the best, to get closer and closer to what I'm after. So yeah, no, like, we're not pumping them out like, you know, like machines. I don't want to be adding to that problem. Um, yeah, I know but I mean, yeah, still, like, I've done years and years of rescue. Oh, it's hard. It's hard. The whole rescue thing is very, very difficult. You get so burnt out. Within the training, within the rescue, I went into that whole thing like super, like, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and very, very positive, and I'm going to make a difference and all that. And it's like, you wouldn't believe, like, I understand why rescue groups are like super, super jaded and angry. it's it's hard, it really is. um but I mean, like, I still will do my best. Any rotting mix, or bully mix, or anything like that that needs help, I will still volunteer for training. I will still volunteer my time, and money for fostering, that kind of thing. um Most of my dogs throughout my life were rescues. The only dogs that I've ever owned that were actually bought were my Rottweilers. That was the only breed that was ever purposefully bought because I wanted that breed. Every other dog in my life has been a rescue, either a shelter or an owner surrender or something. So yeah, like I said, I've had my toe dipped in both worlds. Um, yeah, it's a lot of everything's kind of a contradiction these days, isn't it?
Do you guys envision yourselves uh, introducing any other kinds of bloodlines, or is it you just want to stick with this kind of mix now, or is there any other kinds of dogs that you think might push the program a little further, and or has there been any talk about that, and what are those conversations like?
Um, I've had some people ask if I had considered other breeds. Like one I get asked a lot is if I had planned on adding Staffordshire Bull Terrier to the line because of the size and the structure. And I had thought about it initially because of the, like I say, the dog that got me into dog training was a Staffy Bull mix, little like 37 pound. So ideal size, great. But one of the concerns would have been adding dog aggression to the line, which we want to avoid at all costs. Some talk had been like, okay, well maybe instead of the miniature pinscher, maybe something like rat terrier, and other things. Like it's been a little bit of chat, but nothing that's really been put into motion. I mean, I do like the idea of not using miniature pinscher because, like I say, it I find it makes the dogs too high strung. But I don't really know what would be a good substitute for that because like I do like the Roddy Bear mix because I do like the Beagle added in there because it still keeps the thicker bone structure um, to a degree, but it cuts a bit of the high energy out. Um, but well, actually, no. I mean, a little bit it does, but from compared to like the Carlin Pinscher, because even like people don't tend to think of pugs as being high energy, but they are. So yeah, like I say, but in terms of like aesthetically to look at, it's been the best mix so far because they do look like tiny Rottweilers. They do. Um, like the pug min pin mix, it makes sense. Like as far as looks go, that it would be the closest thing to complement the Rottweiler in terms of overall like body structure. But like I say, like Kayla went with a miniature lab, but it's hard to. We've gotten a lot of comments, the occasional comment in the group, which is, oh well, they're breeding the mini out of the mini rot with people that end up with dogs that are like 60, 70 pounds. And I have to keep reminding people we're not breeding the mini out of the mini rot. We're trying to take a breed that's 100 plus pounds and make it smaller over generations. Like it takes time. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. And because of the, throwbacks, genetic throwbacks, you're going to get dogs, and especially in the first couple generations in a litter, that are like, some are 30 pounds and some are 70 pounds. Like I have in one of my F4 litters, who's off of a female that I imported from Chris's line. In the same litter, I have a male that I've kept back. Bean, he's brilliant. I absolutely love his look. He looks like a Rottweiler. He's absolutely gorgeous, and he's 30 pounds. He's just so tiny, and he's like what I want my females to be. And then my female from my first Jester litter, she's 49 pounds of solid, like nice and blocky. She's the closest to looking like a Rottweiler, like proper. I sent you some really nice pictures of her with like the flowers in the background. Like she's gorgeous. And her family's so happy with her. This is the one in the co-owner home with the working Malinois, and I really can't wait to see what things they do with her. But she's beautiful, but she is on the size that I would prefer my males to be at. So I would love to just take Bean and Ninja and just kind of switch them, just kind of swap them, and then I'd be perfect. But um, yeah, like that's the thing, is people got to remember that like in the same litter, you're gonna have some dogs that are 30 pounds, some dogs that are like 60, even 70 pounds. Like because Kayla breeds hers with a larger breed, her minis are going to be on the larger side as far as what a mini is. So you might have a dog that's 60, 70 pounds, which is still smaller than a purebred male Rottweiler. It's still like half the size of a purebred male Rottweiler. So still, by a large breed standard, considered mini. Like not toy, you know, but still miniature. Um, but yeah, like I said, it's hard because we already have the different breeders with the different breeds in their program, right? I think right now we're just trying to get as consistent of a look across the board as we can. before introducing completely different dogs into the line. Just trying to get some kind of consistency, like across the line with all of the breeders, at least at the very least in look. So yeah, I don't know. That would be something to think about. I know that Layla, she has a female, like I say, that she's planning on introducing actual Roddy blood to her Roddy Bear line, and she is, I don't remember what the mix is. She's half Rottweiler, and I think it was either Frenchie or something else. But she's like a brown brindley type of looking dog. Like structure wise, she, if you ignored the color, structure wise, she does look very Roddy. And so she plans on breeding to one of her black and tan Roddy bears. So we'll get, pups in the litter that are, it's like 50% black and tan and 50% some brindle there. But I'm hoping to get, if a perfect female is produced out of that litter, I'm hoping to get a female out of her for my program, which will introduce a little bit of something new into my dogs. If that is Frenchie or, whatever the case might be with that dog, that will be adding some new genetics there into my line than just the basic pug and min pin. So yeah, we'll see. Like I say, anything could happen. When creating a new breed, that's anything can happen, really.
Yeah, one of the things for me now, if as a consumer on the outside looking in, that would be very important is I would love a miniature version of a Rottweiler. I just wouldn't want necessarily that temperament. So the temperament would be a huge selling point for me eventually if that was something that you guys could lock in.
And that one has been kind of difficult because we have had some owners that say, oh, the temperament is very Roddy like, and then we've had people say the temperament is not quite. And of course, it's a mixed breed, so you're not going to get, you're not always going to get 100% the Roddy temperament. Like I have a female here out of Chris's line, Juniper, and she's big for a mini. She is, especially for a female, she is closer to the 60 pound. So she's expecting a litter any day now, actually, in the next week. I've bred her to my very first Roddy Bear, Jack. He's 25 pounds to get the size back down. So it will water out the Roddy blood a little bit because she's on the higher end. She's like 62% Roddy. So it'll bring the Roddy percentage down, but it will bring the size back down to what we want because 60 for a female is like way bigger than we want. But she has very much a standard, Rottweiler temperament, very, very much so. So again, we're sacrificing size for temperament and character. Like both dogs, as far as like stable, calm temperament, are great. In terms of an actual Rottweiler character, Juniper does very much have it, but then Jack is just like he's kind of a crazy beast. He definitely has the higher, min pin beagle, pug energy for sure. But yeah, so who knows what that combination is going to end up creating. You're sacrificing look or size for the temperament because it's a mixed breed. You're not going to get 100% Rottweiler temperament every time. Like, you're just not. It's going to be something different. At the end of the day, people want a small Rottweiler, but they are going to be their own breed. They're not going to be exactly a small Rottweiler. They will resemble it, but eventually in the future, they will be their own breed. They will have their own temperament and characteristics. They will have a new name. They will be a different breed from the Rottweiler. I would love to do a part two if I could bring Layla on to talk more about the development of the Roddy Bear too, because like she's been in the dog world for a while too. She was into the American Pit Bull Terrier, into the purebred like Roddy world, the Roddy Bears and all that too. And I'd like to hear more about her own plans with them as well, because she She did like with her Roddy Bear program for the longest time too, like trying to get as close to the Roddy look as possible without Rottweiler blood at all, which I just think is very, very interesting in its own right too. I don't know, like I used to see that like advertised a lot. Oh yeah, these guys have no Rottweiler blood in them whatsoever. But like to me, the caveat was always, well, how can you really call them miniature Rotties if they don't actually have Rottweiler blood in them? But that's just like my own personal thing. But no, I think if anything, I want to see if I could try to get her on for an interview and get her take on stuff, because she could talk about like breeds and dogs in general for quite a bit, and she has a lot of really interesting things to say too. But no, like I say, I would like to see more breeders of these guys. And I mean, who knows what the future will hold. I'm happy with at least how it's started and the direction that it's going. And I hope that it continues to do better from here on. Yeah, I can't think of anything else in particular that I think we haven't covered already.
Jesus Answers Prayers is a multi-platform ministry in both English and Spanish. Our mission is twofold. First is evangelism. We have the gospel presentation videos to help reach the lost and explain the basics of the gospel. The links can be found at the end of every video produced by this ministry. They also help in aiding the Christian in evangelism. Second is the education for the Christian community. God's word is very important to know. God doesn't speak in an audible voice to us, but he does speak through his word. If we don't read his word, then we can miss out. So knowing is important. And if you're anything like me, it can be hard to understand particular chapters and their meanings. So it's nice to have that commentary to help grow in the understanding of God's word. If you want to grow in your understanding of Scripture, then you can find the Bible, a work in progress, book by book, chapter by chapter, with a corresponding Matthew Henry commentary. God bless and see you there.
Jesús responde. Oraciones. Es un ministerio multiplataforma, tanto en inglés como en español. Nuestra misión es doble. La primera es la evangelización. Tenemos los videos de presentación del Evangelio para ayudar a alcanzar a los perdidos y explicar los conceptos básicos del Evangelio. Los enlaces se pueden encontrar al final de cada video producido por este ministerio. También ayudan al cristiano en la evangelización. En segundo lugar, está la educación para la comunidad cristiana. Es muy importante conocer la palabra de Dios. Dios no nos habla en voz audible, pero sí a través de su palabra. Si no leemos su palabra, entonces podemos perdernos. Entonces, saber es importante y, si eres como yo, puede resultar difícil comprender capítulos concretos y sus significados. Por eso es bueno tener ese comentario para ayudar a crecer en la comprensión de la palabra de Dios. Si desea aumentar su comprensión de las Escrituras, puede encontrar la Biblia, un trabajo en progreso, libro por libro, capítulo por capítulo, con el correspondiente comentario de Matthew Henry. Dios los bendiga y nos vemos allí.